shocking discovery. He was on a 7-day journey through the mountain. This is the most dangerous cave on Earth, and it's hiding something terrifying. Eli Meyer, a man from Houston, Texas, was on vacation overseas hiking in the Himalayas when he made a shocking discovery. He was on a 7-day journey through the mountains. On the 6th day, he found something strange. Around noon, he saw a little cave entrance on the mountainside. Eli was an adventurous man, and he dropped his bags and went over to the small opening in the mountain. He was very curious and entered the cave. He followed the cave as it winded down, and then something crazy happened. Towards the end of the tunnel, he came to a massive cavern. He could not see the other side, even with his bright flashlight. However, when he looked down, he was truly horrified. Below him was utter blackness, as he was standing on the edge of a massive drop. He had no idea how far down it went, so he picked up a rock and threw it down and listened for when it would hit the bottom. It took over 30 seconds for him to hear the sound of it hitting the bottom. This meant the cave and This is the
While driving down a dirt road, I spotted 2 caves in the distance. I decided to fly my drone and see what was inside of them. The first cave didn't seem to have much. There were just some small rocks. The second cave was located just above the first one. As I flew in closer, I noticed a window on the left side. Upon further inspection, I realized it was the remnants of an ancient structure built from stones and mortar. Probably a granary is my guess. And it looks empty. Whatever was here has long been destroyed or looted by illegal pot hunters. Inside this cave showed signs of human visitation, possibly habitation, evidenced by the smoke or soot on the ceiling. The piles of rocks suggest that there might have been other structures within the cave as well.
In 1986, an extraordinary discovery was made in Romania, the unveiling of Movile Cave. This captivating cave had been secluded from the outside world for an astonishing 5.5 million years. What made Movile Cave truly remarkable was its peculiar atmosphere, consisting of only 10% oxygen and a puzzling absence of any apparent food source. Despite these inhospitable conditions, an astounding 57 species managed to thrive within its dark depths, among them leeches, spiders, pseudoscorpions, woodlice, a centipede, a water scorpion, and also a snail. Surprisingly, 37 of these unique organisms existed exclusively within this enigmatic cave, not found anywhere else on the planet.
These guys were exploring caves in Iceland when they found this. It is a very impressive and super cool tunnel that is made of ice.
This is a glowing cave of ice, Mike.
Would you like to visit there? These guys were exploring caves in ice.
All right, that's 5644. I have to...
This guy will probably get arrested for this. I didn't even know we had caves this deep.
Your school...
Do you know these 10?
The road was empty, buried under fresh winter snow, stretching endlessly through the forest. I was 3 hours into my night drive, heading home after visiting a friend. The radio crackled with static, and my phone had lost signal miles ago. At exactly 2:17 a.m., I passed a road sign, mile marker 61. A few minutes later, the fog thickened. Snow tapped softly against the windshield like fingers. I slowed down and felt my stomach drop. The same sign appeared again, mile marker 61. I told myself it was stress, maybe a side road loop. I kept driving. The forest on both sides grew darker, the trees bending inward like they were watching. At 2:29 a.m., I passed it again. This time, something stood beneath the sign. A man, tall, thin, his face hidden by a hood dusted with snow. He wasn't waving, he wasn't moving, just standing there. facing the road. I pressed the gas. The car engine whined, tires slipping on ice. In the rearview mirror, the man was suddenly closer, standing in the middle of the road now. My radio turned on by itself. A voice whispered, "You missed your turn." The car stalled. The headlights went out. In the darkness, I heard footsteps crunching slowly toward me. When the engine finally roared back to life, I didn't look back. I drove until dawn. Later that morning, at a gas station, I asked the clerk about mile marker 61. He went pale. "That stretch doesn't exist anymore," he said. "It was removed after too many drivers disappeared in winter storms." If you want to hear more real events like this, make sure to subscribe and
show a picture of how you almost...
These are the top 5 most terrifying sea creatures that are still alive today. Last one is so massive. Comment which one will make you out of the water. But before we dive in, this video gives a massive luck if you like, and subscribe to this channel before this video ends. First, the big fin squid. This thing looks like an alien puppet from a horror movie. It has spindly, 20-foot-long tentacles with elbows that allow it to drag its arms along the ocean floor. Like ghostly fingers. Next, the goblin shark. This is the ocean's version of a jump scare.
If you're struggling to decide...
Do you?
Mr. Beast will not tell...
How did you die in your...
The front.
Girl.
They found a sea... They found...
Archaeologists say it's a coincidence, but the ancient handbag, as it is now known, has quickly become a historical enigma, baffling scholars around the world. The mainstream narrative says that each ancient civilization developed independently, with little to no connection with each other. Yet the ancient handbag symbol has now been discovered in almost all ancient cultures. It first appears at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which dates back to 11,600 years ago. It also shows up in Mesopotamia, ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, and the Balkans. But strangely, despite the vast Atlantic Ocean and over 7,000 miles between them, the ancient handbag symbol appears in the Mesoamerican cultures, such as the Toltec, the Maya, and even the Olmec. Some people believe that this symbol represents a transference or handing down of ancient knowledge. Some even believe this could be a symbolic representation of some form of ancient technology. Archaeologists
Imagine a giant egg-shaped rock like this, which is standing at a 10 feet height from the ground level. You cannot even touch it. And it looks shiny and smooth like an egg. But a few centuries ago, because of an earthquake, a stone door cracked and fell down. Only then the locals realized that it had a chamber inside. The door was so well made and it was perfectly fit in the doorway that nobody could even recognize it was a door. They had to put a ladder and climbed up, and this is how they discovered this chamber. No one knows when this chamber was originally created. There are no inscriptions pointing to the origin of this chamber. Imagine
This place is an absolute nightmare for anyone with claustrophobia. It looks just like a normal forest, but there are actually these super tiny tunnels called the Kuche tunnels hidden here, which helped the Vietnamese win the war against America. The tunnels are incredibly small and tight to avoid detection. You can slip into the tunnels and hide the entrance. It's dark, tight, and pretty scary inside. The tunnels are over 400 kilometers long, so you might surface in a completely different location. This place
In early 2021, a group of scientists from the British Antarctic Survey drilled down half a mile into the Filchner-Ronne ice shelf in Antarctica, and what they found was astounding. These geologists were drilling to collect rock samples for study, but they accidentally discovered an entire hidden ecosystem instead. There were living creatures never before seen, found down there crawling across an enormous boulder on the Antarctic seafloor. The researchers stressed that finding the boulder there at all was strange enough, but for it to be covered with unknown fungi-esque and sponge-like organisms, that was truly miraculous. The rock was also coated in bacteria, a thriving miniature world in the deep ocean. It's given scientists new hope that if life can be found here, maybe it can be found further afield too, like underneath the icy surface of Europa.
It heats.
Today, I discovered a mysterious sewer drain, so me and the boys decided to explore what's inside and see where it leads. So first, we crawled through the drain that led into a super long and narrow tunnel. Then I began pulling this rope down into the tunnel so we could find our way back if we got lost. Now after hiking for just a few minutes, we found animal tracks, spider webs, and a bunch of writing on the walls. So we continued trekking deeper and deeper until...
There's no more rope.
We're out?
Yeah, honestly, we should probably turn around, because we're...
That. We gotta keep going. I'm good, guys. Now as we continued hiking farther inside, the smell got worse and the tunnel gradually became more wet. But nevertheless, we kept exploring until the tunnel significantly shrunk. What's the worst that can happen?
We suffocate.
As long as you get the content. Let's go! Then after walking for a total of 3 miles, we found this open room that led back up to the surface. So my friend climbed up and began trying to pry open the drain cover with a crowbar.
Got it. I'm free.
So we anxiously climbed out of the dark tunnel and came out next to a local school. Today, I discovered a mistake.
If you get purple.
If no new...
Remove.
Half the people watching this would swear they've seen scarier skies. If you say you've seen skies like this before, prove it in the comments. And if you like and subscribe right now, you'll have crazy luck tomorrow. First up, the supercell cloud. How is something this massive even allowed to exist in the sky? Next is the human-shaped cloud.
We parked on the side of the...
Tell me this doesn't look like an actual figure standing in the sky. If I saw this in real life, I'd be questioning everything. Next is the black ring smoke.
No, it's like a black ring or something.
Perfect black rings floating upward like glitches in the air. They're real and usually linked to powerful blasts. Next is the pink sky. The entire sky turns pink like the world switch filters. Finally, the split sky. Half the people watching
want to play.
If you were given...
Put a finger down if you know this trending song.
Like shit.
Get 100 free spins with your first £10 deposit. All winnings are paid in cash.
In an underground world. You'll find caves all over the world, some hidden under the rocks, while some under the ice and sea. Here are 10 of the most beautiful hidden caves in the world that are discovered recently. 10. Kamchatka Cave, Russia. This long magical ice cave is made up of a translucent ceiling that illuminates its wonderful inner ice structures. The surreal-looking cave is situated in the Kamchatka Peninsula of Russia and formed by a hot water spring flowing on the ice fields beneath and around the nearby Matnovsky volcano. The cave was found by a group of photographers and a guide during late 2012. The explorers believe that it's hard to find this wondrous cave again without a guide, and there's also a possibility that the cave could have melted during the winters, but that wouldn't stop the thrill seekers to give it another try. 9. Underwater Cave, Mexico. Discovered recently, the underwater cave on Yucatan Peninsula, Mexico, is supposed to be the world's longest continuous flooded cave system. Spread across an astounding 347 kilometers of subterranean caverns, the enormous water-laden chamber is a true wonderland in itself. This mammoth cave is known as Saskatoon System, combining the two previous known caves, Saskatoon and Dos Hoyos. Archaeologists believe that Saskatoon could connect to 3 other underwater cave systems, which could further lead to the discovery of many more Mayan artifacts and human remains. 8. Ellison's Cave, Georgia, USA. The 12th known deepest cave in the United States, featuring 2 deepest pits, fantastic and incredible, in the country. Located on the Pigeon Mountain in the Appalachian Plateaus of northwest Georgia, the pit cave is over 12 miles long and extends 1,063 feet vertically. Cavers can ascend from over 7 routes from the fantastic side. The exceptional depth of the Ellison's Cave is a result of tectonic movements, leaving behind a large structural deformation along with the growth of gypsum and limestone. It's usually explored only by experienced cavers due to its dangerous nature. 7. Mount Erebus Ice Caves, Antarctica. Mount Erebus is the most active volcano in Antarctica, featuring a pond of 1700 degrees Fahrenheit lava. But, on the outside, the temperatures are intensely freezing. In this fusion of hot and cold temperatures, though, there are stunning ice caves carved out around the snow-covered volcano by the escaping volcanic gases. These warm caves of Antarctica also hold the potential to be home to a secret world of unknown species. 6. Eisenreusenwelt Cave, Austria. Dubbed as the world of the ice giants, the Eisenreusenwelt Cave is considered to be the world's largest ice cave, scattered 42 kilometers through the Tenernsberg sections of the Alps. The cave offers some of the most spectacular visuals formed with ice figures and frozen waterfalls, making Eisenreusenwelt one of the marvelous caves and attractive destination for cavers. Hidden beneath the Hochkogel mountain above the town of Werfen, Austria, the cave is known to exist from between 50 to 100 million years. 5. Reed Flute Cave, China. Known as the Palace of Natural Arts, the Reed Flute Cave is a popular landmark for tourists and lighting fans alike. Situated 3 miles northwest of downtown Guilin, China, the cave gets its name from a peculiar reed found around the cave. But it wasn't the harvesting of the reed that led to the discovery of this cave. It was actually spotted by refugees that managed to escape from the Japanese forces during World War II. The cave itself is, however, 180 million years old, with ink inscriptions dated back to 792 AD in the Tang Dynasty. Today, the cave is transformed with countless number of colorful lights that illuminate the stalactites and stalagmites, creating a mesmerizing panorama for the visitors. 4. Lechuguilla Cave, New Mexico, USA. Lechuguilla Cave is one of the deepest limestone caves in the US, which is yet to be explored and mapped completely. Named after the plant species Agave luchigilla, found at the opening, the cave is an extraordinary chamber of some of the rarest mineral formations. The cave formation is known to have come from the dissolution of sulfuric acid, derived from hydrogen sulfide that migrated from nearby oil deposits. The entrance of the cave is plastered with large amounts of gypsum, along with speleothems and hydromagnesite balloons that you will find nowhere else in the world. The spotless surfaces, untouched over millions of years, make this 138 miles long wilderness one of the most beautiful caves of the world. 3. Cave of Giant Crystals, Mexico. Buried 300 meters below the Nika Mountain in Chihuahua, Mexico, the Cave of Giant Crystals is a remarkable display of natural mineral formations, housing some of the largest selenite crystals. The gigantic crystals have been measured at 11 meters, 36 feet high, weighing 55 tons approximately. The natural chasm sits right above a pool of magma, making it unbearably hot for humans to survive. The temperature observed in the main chamber is found to be 150 degrees Fahrenheit, 65.6 degrees Celsius, with 100% relative humidity. You do need a prior approval if you wish to visit the upper caverns. 2. Fingal's Cave, Scotland. Fingal's Cave is one of the most extraordinary, symmetrical masterpieces located on the uninhabited island of Staffa in the Inner Hebrides of Scotland. The cave is popular for its neatly shaped hexagonal columns made up of basalt that join together to form the walls, and also its natural acoustics. This magnificent gift by nature is known to have formed due to the contraction and fracturing of solidified lava, which led to the development of hexagonal fracture pattern. Besides, the naturally formed arch roof helps in producing hypnotic melodic keys as the ocean waves reverberate against the basalt walls. 1. Hang Son Doong, Vietnam. Hang Son Doong is a recently discovered cave and is also the world's largest, over 5 kilometers long, with sections that reach up to 200 meters tall and 150 meters wide. The cave is huge enough for a 747 plane to fly through one of its large caverns. Made up of foreign landscapes and enormous stalactites, Pangsondong also has its own jungle and a localized weather system due to the misty clouds that cover it. The surreal cave is hidden in the popular Phong Nha Ke Bang National Park in Quang Binh province of central Vietnam. The place becomes completely inaccessible in the rainy season due to rise in water levels.
So I tried this website called Hint. It shows you what your soulmate looks like. And this is what I got.
In Georgia, the deepest known cave in the world, descending more than 7,200 feet. Its endless horizontal sprawl creates its own terror. At least in a vertical descent, explorers know the direction they must climb to escape. In Mammoth, the danger lies in its scale. Corridors branch and twist until the sense of direction collapses. Without careful mapping, a wrong turn can lead to miles of wandering in the dark with no way back. The result is a different kind of depth, not of distance, but of infinity. And despite centuries of exploration, most of the cave remains untouched. Whole sections are closed off, some because of hazardous air pockets, others because they have simply never been surveyed. What lies in those sealed chambers is anyone's guess. The possibility of new species, untouched archaeological sites, or massive unexplored halls remains very real. Mammoth Cave proves that even in a world mapped from orbit, there are still places on this planet where the unknown stretches for hundreds of miles. That is what makes the system so unsettling. If natural geology can produce an underground world on this scale, endless corridors, hidden chambers, toxic pockets of air, rivers running in silence for miles, then secrecy beneath the surface is not just a human invention. It is part of the planet itself. And if caves created by nature can swallow lives and still hold miles of uncharted territory, what might lie inside the tunnels built deliberately by human powers, where secrecy is the very purpose? Underground networks are not just relics of the past. In northern China, one of the largest subterranean systems on Earth was built not thousands of years ago, but in the last few decades. It is known as the underground Great Wall. Constructed by the People's Liberation Army Rocket Force, this labyrinth reportedly stretches more than 3,000 miles, longer than the entire width of the continental United States. Its purpose is not disputed. It was designed to store, move, and protect China's nuclear arsenal. But nearly everything else about it remains classified. Fragments of information come from satellite imagery, rare leaked photos, and investigative reports. They show entrances disguised as hillsides, camouflage blast doors, and long reinforced corridors where missile transporters can move unseen. Analysts believe the tunnels link together storage chambers, launch bays, and underground command centers. Some reports even suggest entire cities have been constructed within the network to house military personnel. The engineering effort behind it is staggering. Carving thousands of miles of tunnel through rock would have required massive boring machines, decades of labor, and an enormous budget. Chinese sources say the project began during the height of the Cold War, when the risk of a nuclear first strike from rival powers was seen as a real threat. By dispersing missiles and launch systems underground, China ensured its arsenal could survive and retaliate no matter what happened above. Estimates of what lies inside vary widely. Official figures put China's nuclear arsenal at around 500 warheads. Some US defense analysts argue the number could be far higher, with many of those weapons concealed in the underground Great Wall. If true, China may possess far more strategic power than it publicly admits. The tunnels allow weapons to be hidden, moved, and potentially launched from unpredictable locations, making them nearly impossible to track. First-hand accounts from defectors and leaked state documents describe networks of reinforced bunkers, train tunnels large enough to carry mobile launch systems,
and maintenance facilities buried hundreds of feet underground. The tunnels are said to connect entire provinces, stretching through mountains and linking critical bases together. For comparison, the US built hundreds of individual silos during the Cold War, fixed sites that could be targeted. China's approach is different, a shadow network that can shift and hide, making any strike against it uncertain. The secrecy around the underground Great Wall has fueled debate for decades. In 2009, a Chinese state television segment showed brief footage of missile transporters moving through underground corridors, confirming what analysts had long suspected. Beyond that, almost nothing has been disclosed. Western researchers have attempted to map the system through satellite data, but only fragments are known. The true scale and capacity remain hidden. The comparisons are stark. Derinkuyu sheltered 20,000 people beneath Turkey's soil. The Mammoth Cave system winds for hundreds of miles through Kentucky's limestone. But the underground Great Wall surpasses them both in length and purpose. It is not a relic of survival or a natural wonder. It is a modern fortress dug in silence, designed to conceal weapons that could end life on the surface. That continuity is telling. From ancient sanctuaries to modern bunkers, the underground remains the ultimate safeguard. Thousands of years ago, people sealed themselves away to survive floods or invasions. Today, governments seal away their most dangerous arsenals. The instinct is the same. When the stakes are highest, power is hidden below.
Our Places Titanium Pro Collection is here to revolutionize home cooking, constructed without a coating or for.
Most of what lies inside the underground Great Wall will likely never be seen by the public. Entrances are sealed, maps are classified, and the system is constantly expanding. What is known is enough to prove that even in the age of satellites and constant surveillance, the most important infrastructure can still vanish from view if it is built beneath the surface. In the Ural Mountains of Russia rises a peak with a reputation unlike any other. Mount Yamantau looks ordinary from the outside, a rugged, forested mountain range dotted with small towns and villages. But intelligence agencies, satellite images, and scattered reports tell a very different story. They describe the mountain as sealed, honeycombed with tunnels, and guarded with unusual secrecy. For decades, Mount Yamantau has been at the center of one of the greatest mysteries of the Cold War and beyond. The story first came to wider attention in the 1990s, as the Soviet Union collapsed and Russia transitioned into its new identity. American satellites had already been tracking unusual activity in the area for years. They showed massive excavation projects around the mountain, construction of rail lines and highways leading directly into it, and whole towns springing up to houseworkers. The effort was enormous, rivaling the largest military-industrial projects of the Cold War. Yet Russia never explained what it was building. When pressed, Russian officials gave contradictory answers. At times, they claimed the site was nothing more than a mining operation. In other statements, it was described as a food storage facility or even a warehouse for treasures of the Russian people. None of these explanations matched the scale of the project. A warehouse does not require entire railroads driven into a mountain. A food depot does not explain thousands of workers excavating chambers large enough to be seen from space. The answers only deepen the mystery. American analysts suspected something much more serious, a vast underground complex built for nuclear war. During the Cold War, both the US and the Soviet Union developed networks of bunkers and command posts designed to survive a first strike. But Yamantau appeared to go far beyond that. The scale suggested not just a bunker for leaders, but an entire subterranean city capable of housing tens of thousands. Reports claimed it could store weapons, accommodate command centers, and provide shelter for Russia's leadership and military in the event of global catastrophe. What made Yamantau especially ominous was the timing. Construction continued through the 1990s, even as Russia was experiencing economic collapse. The government claimed it could not pay wages or provide basic services, yet it poured enormous resources into digging deeper into the mountain. Why was Yamantau considered so important that it survived when so many other projects were abandoned? First-hand accounts from those living near the site describe heavy security and total secrecy. Entire towns were off-limits to outsiders. Roads were blocked. Checkpoints manned by armed guards restricted movement, and locals were warned not to ask questions. Some workers reportedly lived in closed cities nearby, their lives tied entirely to the project. To this day, the area remains sensitive, patrolled, and shielded from prying eyes. Satellite images confirmed what locals hinted at. Vast spoil piles of excavated rock appeared on the surface, proof of massive tunneling below. Rail lines were built directly into the mountain, suggesting that whatever lay inside required heavy equipment or supplies. Analysts compared the visible infrastructure to known nuclear command complexes, but on a much larger scale. The true scale is still unknown. Some reports suggest Yamantau could cover more than 400 square miles of underground space, enough to contain not just bunkers, but entire industrial facilities. Others estimate it could support a population of 60,000 for months, perhaps years. If accurate, Yamantau is not just a command center. It is a hidden city, buried deep in the Ural Mountains, waiting for a future most hope will never come. The secrecy continues into the present day. Russia has never offered a consistent explanation, and Western intelligence has never been able to confirm what lies inside. To this day, Yamantau is treated as one of Russia's most classified projects, guarded as tightly as nuclear launch codes. The silence has left the field open to speculation. Some argue it is a continuity of government facility, meant to keep Russia's leadership alive through nuclear war. Others believe it houses nuclear weapons or production facilities, hidden away from international treaties. The most extreme theories suggest it could contain research laboratories or storage for doomsday devices. Whatever the truth, the unanswered questions make Yamantau one of the most unsettling sites on Earth. Unlike ancient ruins, where mystery lingers because time has erased the evidence, Yamantau is deliberately hidden, actively maintained, and fiercely protected. It shows that secrecy underground is not a thing of the past. It is alive today, guarded by one of the world's most powerful militaries, and yet, even with all the satellite images, analyst reports, and local accounts, the strangest claims about Yamantau don't come from governments at all. They come from those who say they've been inside. Few stories illustrate this better than the case of Phil Schneider and the Dulce Base. Phil Schneider was a geological engineer who claimed to have worked on deep underground military construction projects in the United States during the 1970s. According to his testimony, he wasn't just involved in building tunnels. He claimed to have witnessed and survived one of the strangest and most terrifying encounters ever reported beneath the earth. In a series of public talks during the mid-1990s, Schneider described a hidden facility near Dulce, New Mexico. He said the base was built as part of a vast network of DUMBS, deep underground military bases, linked together by high-speed tunnels running beneath the country. These facilities, he claimed, were not just bunkers or storage sites. They were research centers where genetic experiments and classified projects were conducted far from public view. But Schneider's most explosive claim was that the Dulce base was not controlled solely by humans. He said that while excavating a section of the tunnels, workers broke into a cavern already occupied, and that inside were non-human entities. According to him, the accidental breach sparked a firefight. Schneider claimed he was wounded by a weapon unlike anything known on the surface, a blast that burned part of his chest and hand. Dozens of soldiers and workers, he said, were killed in the incident. From that moment forward, Dulce Base was allegedly operated as a joint facility, with both human and non-human occupants sharing the underground space. The details are sensational. Laboratories where experiments blended human and animal DNA, tanks filled with strange biological matter, and levels of the base restricted depending on clearance. The deeper you went, the stranger the research became. Schneider painted a picture of an underground world where science crossed into territory that mainstream institutions would never acknowledge. Of course, none of these claims have ever been verified. No hard evidence has emerged that proves Dulce Base exists. No documents have surfaced confirming Schneider's story. To this day, official sources dismiss his testimony as fabrication. And yet, what keeps the story alive is how it fits within the broader pattern we've already seen. Governments and militaries clearly value underground secrecy, from China's 3,000 miles of nuclear tunnels to Russia's Mount Yamantau. Enormous projects exist that the public knows almost nothing about. If those are admitted, how much more could remain unacknowledged? Even among locals in Dulce, stories have circulated for years about unusual activity. Residents have spoken of strange lights in the sky, unexplained sounds deep in the mesa, and military-style helicopters flying low without insignia. Combined with Schneider's claims, the legend of Dulce Base has become one of the most enduring underground conspiracy stories in the United States. Critics point out that Schneider's account was inconsistent at times, and that he provided no physical proof of his wounds being caused by unknown weapons. But supporters argue that he paid the ultimate price for speaking out. In 1996, Schneider was found dead in his apartment under circumstances his family and followers describe as suspicious. Officially, his death was ruled a suicide. To those who believe his story, it was silencing. What makes the Dulce Base story important is not whether every detail is true, but what it represents. Even as a legend, it reflects the same themes found throughout history: secrecy below ground, hidden chambers sealed from public eyes, and projects carried out in silence while the world above carries on unaware.
How do you structure your life to allow for you to create like no one's watching?
All of us are really just talking about vulnerability.
Dulce has become a symbol of the underground itself, a place where the most dangerous or extraordinary truths are kept buried. From Daring Kuyu to Teotihuacan, from Chavin to Yamantau, every site we've explored points to the same conclusion. The underground has always been where humanity hides what it cannot explain, what it cannot control, or what it wants to keep safe from view. In ancient times, it was survival and ritual. In modern times, it is weapons, bunkers, and perhaps, if Schneider's story contains even a grain of truth, experiments we are not supposed to know about. We've followed tunnels from Turkey to Peru, from China to the United States, and through legends that span cultures across the globe. Some were carved to protect whole populations, others built for worship, others sealed for military power. A few are openly acknowledged, but many remain classified, restricted, or unexplored. All of it points to one fact: the underground has always been where humanity hides what matters most. Cities, arsenals, secrets, and perhaps things we are not meant to know, all buried in darkness, waiting to be uncovered. Now it's your turn. Do you think stories like Dulce Base are nothing more than myth, or do they echo realities governments would never admit? And if they do, how much of our history, or even our present, is still hidden below our feet? Let us know in the comments, because your insights often shape where we go next. If you enjoyed this, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming.
When a man with a Medal of Honor, Navy Cross, 2-time Navy Distinguished Service Medal, 2-time Legion of Merit Medal, and a Distinguished Flying Cross Congressional Gold Medal tells you that 1 doesn't equal 1, you drop everything you are doing and listen. In the case of this man, he tells us that Antarctica isn't what we know it as. If anything, Antarctica is a thriving continent with people living in it for generations. If he is right, that means everything our government has ever said was a lie. I know they do lie, but this lie would be the ruler of all lies. And then you start to realize that the lies are not the problem, but what they are covering up in Antarctica that made them lie in the first place. Admiral Richard E. Byrd was one of the most decorated officers in the U.S. Navy. He is the only person in history to have 3 ticker tape parades in New York City, one in 1926, 1927, and 1930, given in his honor. He was also one of only 4 American military officers in history entitled to wear a medal with his own image on it. When it comes to accomplishments, authenticity, and awards, there is no one like Richard E. Byrd. But what Byrd was mostly known for was his expedition. He explored places no one wanted to go. You see, Byrd always wanted to be the first in everything. It was like an obsession for him, which could be why he had so many first awards tagged to him, like being the first and youngest admiral at just the age of 41. His obsession with being the first is why he had no problem leading the expedition to Antarctica.
Would you like to watch sex movie videos? I recently found an amazing app that lets you watch unlimited sex movie videos for free.
From the early 1900s to the early 2000s, he led 5 different trips to the Antarctic. The last 3 of these trips were paid for by the US government, while the first 2 were from his pocket and some believers. Byrd's first trip to the Antarctic took place in 1928, with 2 ships and 3 airplanes. Throughout the summer, trips were made to take pictures and study the rocks, and radio contact with the outside world was kept at all times. Then, during the summer of 1933 and 1934, Byrd went on his second trip and worked alone for 5 months at what was known as an advance base, which was a meteorological station. It was during this expedition that he almost died from carbon monoxide poisoning from a stove that didn't have enough airflow. While all these were great and useful expeditions, those were not the expeditions that people talked about. The first 2 were free of any sort of controversies, but the third one wasn't, and weirdly enough, this was when the government started getting involved with Byrd's expedition. From 1946 to 1947, Byrd led an expedition called Operation High Jump, which set up a research base on the Ross Ice Shelf called Little America for 4.
Antarctica, a composite portrait of a continent which has challenged man since first he could sail beyond the limits of his horizon.
The Antarctic continent.
World War II had shown that U.S. ships and aircraft were not up to cold weather. Ships that were operating in the Arctic Sea often froze up, and I mean that literally. Planes coming from Greenland and even Iceland crashed just because of the weather. So in response to that, the U.S. came up with a set of steps to make it easier to use these ships and planes under Arctic conditions. At the same time, the U.S. wanted to see if this could be done from a long distance. Operation High Jump would be created to test and find answers to these questions. A naval task force would go to Antarctica as part of a drill to see how well the equipment stood out against the cold. Then, also, map out a big part of it to either claim the land or to satisfy Pentagon's curiosity. And the best person for this kind of job was the fearless and experienced Admiral Byrd. The operation went so well that it got terminated early. It was because of this mission that ships and planes would be winterized in the years after High Jump, so that they could go to war with the Soviets again if one broke out. The most well-known example is how nuclear-capable B-29 bombers were made ready for winter so they could fly from Alaska. All what I've told you so far was the government version of the story, but here is where people started to ask questions. If it was just a drill, why are you going with 14 ships, 33 aircraft, and about 4,700 men armed to the teeth? There were 2 destroyers tankers, 2 heavily armed seaplanes, and an attack submarine all fully stocked with the best weapons in the entire Navy. That was really a lot of equipment and personnel for just a drill. Apparently, they needed that number to fight the Nazis in Antarctica. You see, in December 1938, Hitler already knew he was about to start a war, so he was putting things in order and getting help from every aspect, including the ones that people would call you crazy for thinking about it. Imagine being on the brink of war and then sending your troops to go find mysterious ancient artifacts that could be used in your favor. Sounds stupid, right? But to Hitler, it wasn't. Anything that could help him was explored. So he signed off on multiple expeditions. One of these expeditions launched on December 17, 1938, and the SAS Schwabenland was sent on a secret mission to Antarctica. On board were scientists, engineers, and also members of the Thule Society, which was a German occultist group. The Thule Society had a lot of beliefs, and most of those beliefs were strongly rooted in racism, hurting anyone who was different than them, especially the Jews. But one belief they had was that a highly advanced race of human-like beings called Aryans existed somewhere deep inside the Earth, and the entrance to Aryans' world was at the South Pole. So the classified mission given by Hitler to the SS Schwabenland was to find a location for a secret underground base and make contact with the Aryans living in the hollow Earth. Once contact was made, they were to negotiate for access to their technology so that they could use it in the upcoming war. The ship reached the Antarctic coast a month later, and for the next couple of weeks, they mapped hundreds of thousands of square miles of the continent. About 150 miles inland, aerial reconnaissance found what is described as an Arctic oasis, an area of about 300 square miles. This area was free of ice, filled with warm water, and even contained plant life, which shouldn't be. The ocean beneath the oasis was a geothermal vent that kept the area relatively warm. This was the ideal place for a base, especially for U-boats. This is where the Nazis would establish the infamous underground facility known as Base 211. Over the course of World War II, Base 211 became a massive complex as large as a small city. Noticing what was happening, the American government was getting worried about this development happening in Antarctica. What's that saying again? Keep your friends close, your enemies closer. And America was going to do that with Operation High Jump. Now, Operation High Jump was supposed to last 6 to 8 months. But remember, I said the mission was cut short because it was successful. The mission lasted just 40 days, and almost immediately everyone was evacuated and the operation terminated. The Navy said it was because winter was coming early and the weather was getting worse, but in Antarctica, February was the height of summer. Their statement didn't correlate with the facts. Remember that they went there in the first place to test their stuff against the cold. If what they said was true, shouldn't the weather be perfect for their test? This was when the conspiracy theories started coming out. Did something happen in Antarctica that made the massive Navy group return to the United States? Probably to reassess and regroup. And what were they regrouping for? For a long time, nobody knew, but all that changed when a diary was found.
So I tried this website called Hint. It shows you what your soulmate looks like. And this is what I got. Tell me what.
On one of his routine flights, Admiral Byrd was flying over the South Pole while speaking with the American public over live radio being relayed by the Navy to listeners. This was like watching your favorite influencer talk or share their experiences. However, during the broadcast, Byrd was cut off from his radio monologue for nearly 3 hours. No one could hear him. Not even the Navy. This was a problem. No one knew where Byrd was or could communicate with him. It was after Byrd released his diary that we were able to see what happened in those 3 missing hours.
We are crossing over the small mountain range and still proceeding northward as best as can be ascertained. Beyond the mountain range is what appears to be a valley with a small river or stream running through the center portion. There should be no green valley below. Something is definitely wrong and abnormal here. We should be over ice and snow. To the port side are great forests growing on the mountain slopes. Our navigation instruments are still spinning. The gyroscope is oscillating back and forth.
Byrd had stumbled on a place he couldn't explain. Antarctica is one of the coldest places on Earth. Warmth and green, fleshy plantations shouldn't exist. To even sound more confusing, Byrd talks about not seeing the sun anymore, which was worrying for him because he was having problems with his navigation system, so he had to resort to using the sun for directions, and now he can't find the sun.
The light here seems different. I cannot see the sun anymore. We make another left turn and we spot what seems to be a large animal of some kind below us. It appears to be an elephant. No, it looks more like a mammoth. This is incredible. Yet, there it is. Decrease altitude to 1,000 feet and take binoculars to better examine the animal. It is confirmed. It is definitely a mammoth-like animal. Report this to base camp.
He tried to radio in, but the radio was not working, and that's when he saw it.
Ahead, we spot what seems to be a city. This is impossible. The aircraft seems light and oddly buoyant. The controls refuse to respond. My God! Off our port and starboard wings are a strange type of aircraft. They are closing rapidly alongside. They are disc-shaped and have a radiant quality to them. They are close enough now to see the markings on them. It is a type of swastika. This is fantastic.
Now even I don't know what he saw. Was it an alien? Was it an ancient civilization? Was it actually the Aryans the Germans were looking for? What was it? Bird's radio finally starts to work, and a voice comes through speaking English with a Nordic or Germanic accent. The voice tells Bird that they would help him land, and he shouldn't worry, that he's in good hands. This was during World War II, so hearing anyone talk with a German accent about you trusting them was like trusting the devil for a blessing. But Bird couldn't do anything or run away. The engines on his plane stopped working and were under some strange control. It was driving itself and even landed safely, all by itself.
Several men are approaching on foot toward our aircraft. They are tall with blonde hair. In the distance is a large shimmering city, pulsating with rainbow hues of color. I do not know what is going to happen now, but I see no signs of weapons on those approaching. I hear now a voice ordering me by name to open the cargo door. I comply. End log.
Bird was taken from the aircraft and boarded on a small platform-like conveyance with no wheels and into the city. Bird was in awe of what he saw. A city made of crystal materials that made it very beautiful. He was then taken into a large building, and it was there he met the one known as the Master.
I see a man with delicate features and with the etching of years upon his face. He is seated at a long table. He motions me to sit down in one of the chairs. After I am seated, he places his fingertips together and smiles. He speaks softly again and conveys the following. We have let you enter here because you are of noble character and well known on the surface world, Admiral. Surface world, I half gasp under my breath. Yes, the Master replies with a smile. You are in the domain of the Ariani, the inner world of the Earth.
Bird was shocked. If what the Master just said is true, that means everything we've ever known about our universe and Earth is wrong. Let me take a moment to explain why this is mind-blowing. There is a theory known as the Hollow Earth theory. Some people heavily believe that there was and probably is an opening to the center of the Earth. In the 1690s, English astronomer Edmund Halley told the Royal Society of London that he thought the Earth was made up of stacked spherical shells that spun in different directions around a central core. Halley thought that the space between the shells could have conditions that supported life. In the 1810s, American officer John Cleves Sims added to Halley's idea by saying that those spheres could be reached through holes in both the North and South Poles. Some believers say that this place is home to aliens, Vikings, ancient cultures, and even Nazis that were trying to escape the Allies. They also claim that Adam and Eve from the Bible were banished from the inside of the Earth to the outside, and the lost tribes of Israel migrated from the outside to the inside. And of course, you don't know of this because it has been debunked by numerous governments, but if what Bird said and stumbled upon is true, then that means we've all lived a lie.
This is not an ordinary rifle, but a mechanical folding slingshot that can instantly transform you into a marksman. It has...
The Master told Bird that he meant him no harm, but he wanted to talk to him because Bird was a respectable person whose opinion matters in the surface world, which was true. The Master then tells Bird the reason for intercepting Bird's plane was to give him a message to tell the surface world about the war going on. The atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan were a cause for worry for them, The world had not seen something like that before. It was alarming for them that they had to risk exposure and send their flying ships to investigate what had happened. Surprisingly, this tallies the numerous accounts of eyewitnesses of UFOs that were recorded during that period. And weirdly enough, they are mostly seen in nuclear plants that could be used for nuclear warfare, in which later, the plants will usually report that something just stopped working or the plant was sabotaged, like in the case of the Solway Firth spacemen. This is a weird thing to think or say, but it's weird that we've not had a World War III. Not that I am praying for one. I love peace. But knowing how humanity likes division more than unity, it's just weird. So, maybe we owe these people our lives. The Master keeps talking about how they have to intervene because mankind has learned to tamper with certain powers. Our emissaries have already delivered messages to the powers of your world, and yet they do not heed. Your race has now reached the point of no return, for there are those among you who would destroy your very world rather than relinquish their power as they know it. The dark ages that will come now for your race will cover the earth like a pall, but I believe that some of your race will live through the storm. Beyond that, I cannot say. We see at a great distance a new world stirring from the ruins of your race, seeking its lost and legendary treasures, and they will be here, my son, safe in our keeping. When that time arrives, we shall come forward again to help revive your culture and your race. Perhaps by then you will have learned the futility of war and its strife. And after that time, certain of your culture and science will be returned for your race to begin anew. You, my son, are to return to the surface world with this message. After Byrd was given the full message, he was escorted out of the room and soon arrived back at their aircraft and were escorted out of the Crystal City. As soon as they left the city, a radio message came through. "We are leaving you now, Admiral. Your controls are free. Auf Wiedersehen." And that was it. Byrd was confused about what just happened. Finally, his radio was working, and the Navy could reach him. On March 11th, 1947, after the expedition was cut short, Byrd attended a staff meeting at the Pentagon where he was debriefed, and he let everyone present know what he saw and the message he got. After this debriefing, Admiral Byrd was detained for several hours, 6 hours 39 minutes to be exact. He was interviewed intently by top security forces and a medical team. He was placed under strict control and was ordered to remain silent about everything he saw or heard at the Crystal City. He was reminded that after all, he was a military man and must obey orders. Their plan worked because Byrd hardly gave an interview after Operation High Jump. He was always watchful of what he was saying. But Byrd writing it down in his diary and it being released after his death was him having the last laugh. When Byrd left the expedition and returned back to Chile, because that was where the Navy retreated to first, before moving back home. He was interviewed by a Chilean journalist, and in that interview, he talked about how the US will be faced by an enemy that can fly pole to pole. It sounded weird, and people were wondering what he meant. But after his diary was released to the public, people couldn't help but wonder if he meant the civilization he met at the South Pole. It didn't also help matters that the Secretary of Defense James Forrestal committed quote-unquote suicide. According to official reports, Forrestal allegedly jumped out of the window of the psychiatric ward in Maryland, and that was shortly after Operation High Jump. Before his death, he was an advocate that aliens existed, and he wanted to inform the US public about this issue. Only to be tagged mad, admitted into a mental hospital, and later allegedly jumped to his death. The one man who knew something about Operation High Jump and was going to talk about it was now dead. Case closed. As usual, there are critics who make solid points about people making up stories. I sometimes find myself as a critic when reviewing stories like this. Like, for example, stories of equipment malfunctioning were believed to be works of aliens, but it turns out that the extreme cold caused a lot of systems to malfunction. This is why Operation High Jump was formed in the first place. Also, when he talked about the United States being attacked pole to pole in his interview, he was talking about attacks from Germans coming from the South Pole to the North Pole, not necessarily about aliens. Journalists have a talent of making the simple sound extravagant to capture people and sell more papers. But the most important criticism of all was that the diary didn't exist. Yep, it was never written by Byrd. It was all a lie. Just like how it was debunked that Byrd was the first man to ever reach the North Pole, a title he kept for a long time even after his death, until someone was curious enough to question its possibility, and after a while, was found that he wasn't the first to reach the North Pole.
Sounds.
However, one thing that worries me is how almost every country in the world who fights one another over little issues decides to come together and live in peace and harmony when it comes to Antarctica. This is known as the Antarctica Treaty, which was signed in the 1960s and sets the rules for Antarctica. I don't know if you know anything about that continent, but it is shrouded in weird political secrecy. You cannot visit Antarctica unless you are a scientist or are given a pass. The continent is pretty much off limits. Yes, there are a few companies that run pricey cruises, but the people who run these businesses have to be connected to intelligence agencies, which means whatever they are showing you is already watered-down knowledge. It's odd to me that the Antarctica Treaty has worked so well. The treaty was said to protect those resources and the environment. All of that is fine, but it's strange that a person from anywhere in the world cannot go to Antarctica. Also, we should remember that over the past few decades, there have been strange accounts, even witnesses of UFOs flying out of the ocean in that part of the world. Inasmuch as Bird's diary is said fake, it still makes us question things. The fact in all stories, be it fake or real, is that he was missing for 3 hours. Where was he in those 3 hours that they couldn't reach him? How was he able to stay in flight for more than 3 hours without refueling? The mysterious death of the Secretary of Defense and the death of Bird's own son makes what should be a close-shut case be a case that is still open for investigation. His son was found in an abandoned warehouse in Baltimore just days before the supposed fake diary was released. And get this, the official report and cause of his death was malnutrition and dehydration. Tell me, how does the son of a prominent Massachusetts family end up dying malnourished? If everything mentioned above are just coincidences, I have to say that's a lot of coincidence. Don't you think?
Imagine dark labyrinths, deep, deep underground. They're full of hidden dangers and The thing is, the sheer size of South Dakota. At first glance, it might seem
This guy will probably get arrested for this.
So this cave is known as the Cave of Death because at the bottom floor of this cave, it's actually 100% concentrated dark matter, which is the only known location on planet Earth where this exists, and we don't understand why. But anything that enters this concentration zone dies immediately, like we see with this fire. So this cave is
The Reaper's Warning can be found in most underwater mapped caves. It is there to tell you that you are leaving the daylight zone or cavern zone and entering a full underwater cave. It is also there to help turn away non-cave certified divers from entering the cave and potentially getting lost. The Reaper
Morbid Facts, Part 98. Since 1982, a group of researchers have been going deeper and deeper into the Veryovkina Cave, the deepest cave in the world. At 3,000
If the screen
Morbid Facts, Part 98. Since 1982, a group of researchers have been going deeper and deeper into the Veryovkina Cave, the deepest cave in the world. At 3,000 feet deep in 2021, they found the body of a climber dangling from a rope. George Washington died because his doctors tried to cure his sore throat by draining his blood. He lost more than half his blood before they decided to stop the treatment, and he died hours later. In the 1500s, Mapuche warrior Galvarino had both his hands cut off as a punishment for defying the Spanish. He returned home, raised an army, and fought the Spanish with blades tied to the stubs of his hands. Morbid.
If the screen
She's so
for the explorers
Get 100 free spins with your first £10 deposit. All winnings are paid in cash.
Modern whistleblowers still argue that there is more about Antarctica that is being covered up than we think.
There's been a lot of talk about underground bases in Antarctica, and certain satellite photos show mountain areas that have unusual caverns in them, literal windows that are the shape of a flying saucer.
Antarctica was never supposed to hold life. It was never supposed to hold anything except ice, silence, and cold older than human history.
Antarctica is the last frontier. It holds our imagination. The last remaining territory on the planet that could have such a designation is Antarctica.
Yet when a scientific team drilled into a sealed pocket 2 kilometers beneath the surface, something warm pushed back. Instruments failed. Air rose from the darkness that tasted metallic and wrong. What they entered was not a cave formed by nature, and what they uncovered inside was never meant to be found on this planet. The anomaly under the ice. The first sign that something was wrong arrived in the form of a heat signature that should not have existed. The climate team had been in East Antarctica for only 3 days, carrying out a routine study meant to track ice loss and shifting temperatures caused by global warming. They expected quiet readings and predictable patterns. Instead, their sensors displayed a block of warm energy hidden beneath the frozen ground. The anomaly sat under 1.8 kilometers of ice in a region known for being one of the coldest and most stable places on the planet. The team had mapped this area many times before, and nothing unusual had ever appeared. Now the monitors showed a sudden rise in temperature that was 12 degrees warmer than the ice around it. The team knew this should only happen if there was volcanic heat below. However, every seismic reading showed the ground was completely still. There was no sign of volcanic activity or geological movement. The warmth was coming from something else. Satellite spectrometry added another disturbing piece of information. The air above the anomaly carried faint traces of gases that did not match anything found in natural Antarctic glacial environments. These gases usually appear only when organic matter breaks down in warm conditions. The team stood in freezing wind while their instruments insisted that something warm and active was buried far below. Nothing about it made sense. The physical reactions began soon after. Several scientists reported a sharp pressure in their ears when they walked toward the marked coordinates. The sensation felt similar to the pressure shift that occurs when a plane descends, but stronger and far more sudden. A field technician became dizzy and had to sit down in the snow. He said the world tilted when he tried to step closer. The team checked their equipment for harmful sound waves and found brief spikes of interference that often occur when strong infrasound is present. Infrasound is a low-frequency vibration that the human ear cannot hear but the body can feel. It can cause anxiety, nausea, and fear. The team did not understand why it was appearing in a silent region of untouched ice. Tension spread through the camp. They rechecked every sensor and machine. They ran control tests to rule out malfunction. During the night, another satellite confirmed the signature. Then a second satellite confirmed it again from a different angle. The data could not be dismissed. A single phrase began to move through the group. There is an air pocket down there. As their fear grew stronger and every doubt faded, the team realized they had only one way to uncover the truth. They had to drill into the ice. Breaching the sealed cave. The team prepared their drilling equipment with a level of care that revealed the fear none of them wanted to say out loud. They brought out a hot water drilling system that had been used in past missions at Lake Whillans and Lake Mercer. This system forced heated water through long hoses that melted the ice in a clean and controlled way. The plan was simple and should have been safe. They needed a narrow and sterile hole that measured 40 centimeters across. This hole would allow them to reach the source of the heat signature and collect samples without contaminating whatever lay beneath. They followed strict rules because they believed they might be drilling into a closed environment. Such environments can hold ancient microorganisms that have been sealed away for thousands or even millions of years. The team wore protective suits, and the drill tubing passed through filters that trapped outside bacteria. For the first 1,000 meters, everything behaved as expected. The drill moved slowly down through layers of ice that were dense and silent. At 1,784 meters, the pressure on the drill suddenly dropped. The technicians froze. A rapid pressure drop usually means the drill has broken into a hollow space. The monitors confirmed this. The drill head had entered a void. Before anyone could react, air rushed upward through the borehole. The air was warm and carried a metallic scent. Instruments picked up particles that suggested living biological material was present. This made no sense. Subglacial caverns in Antarctica are normally filled with water or compressed cold gas. They should never hold warm air. The reactions were immediate. 3 researchers stepped back and covered their mouths. They said the air tasted sour and sharp. One of them became sick and vomited in the snow. Another rubbed her hands repeatedly because her fingers tingled in a way she could not explain. A biologist stared at the rising vapor and whispered that this air had not touched the surface in millions of years. The idea frightened everyone because no one knew.
If you need full dentures but can't deal with the endless expensive dentist visits, you need to see this. I used to hide my mouth every time I
what kind of life or chemical processes could survive in a closed and heated space under this much ice. The team gathered inside the main tent and argued for hours. Some wanted to stop and seal the borehole. Others believed they had a duty to investigate because the data was too important to ignore. In the end, curiosity won. They decided to widen the borehole to 1.2 meters. They used a reinforced thermal reamer that melted the ice in. Was aware of him. This frightened him so much that he nearly stepped back. Their instruments reported a small but clear change. The temperature around the mass rose slightly when he approached and fell when he stepped back. This pattern repeated each time he moved. Despite their fear, they believed the mass was dormant and possibly fossilized. They decided to collect samples before reporting back. This choice would trigger the next stage of the discovery and lead them into far greater danger.